organization, your employees, and your community. This is information that is going to be utilized in the future, today, and also some of the things that we want to make sure that you know and are become aware of is how to improve some of the practices in your business, how to transfer the knowledge that you're using today into the future, your employees. And this session here, in the next session, we're going to be talking about knowledge transfer and some of the things that you need to understand and you can also utilize in your business to make sure that you have everything you need. And also, I want to make sure that all of the attendees have an opportunity to have access to the information in the future. So we'll be talking about the agenda, some of the things that we're going to be doing. And for this presentation, I want to make sure that we introduce Chad and Aman. Aman is a force of nature. She's an amazing individual that has been in the business, in the industry of thought management and thought processing. 18 years experience in creating a consulting firm that helps individual companies and their organizations kind of roadmap their expertise and all of the information that they need to process to make it valuable. And also Chad is somebody that has been in the data management field and processing this information. And he's a programmer by night and a business owner by day, and making things happen along the way. So Aman, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Russ?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, we're moving through this thing. We had, you know, with the internet and some of the challenges and you know, so many moving parts. I want to give you credit, and I want to give you a shout out to make sure that you understand that this is unique and valuable information that is being shared. Chad, are you able to hear us now? Can you talk and say something, Chad? We're gonna get Chad. Fortunately, we had Chad and Aman register this before and record this event. So anything that you would like to share with the audience in advance, Aman?
No, I think, you know, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's attended the SparkCon session so far. We have 2 more tomorrow before we wrap up this week. And this has been really good. We've learned a lot before we come back to you next year. And this has been a fabulous, fabulous event. So thank you so much for all the support, the outreach we've received. Truly appreciate it. And of course, to the amazing support to you and Russ and Mel. So thank you so much. And we can go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. So take it away, Reem, and let's real talk on the outside and the end of the session and come back to see you.
You got it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. According to market research, the oil and gas drilling sector's total revenue came to approximately $3.3 trillion in 2019. This sector comprises companies that explore, develop, and operate in the oil and gas fields. The vital component of the industry are the skilled workers. These employees work in some of the most challenging environments in the U.S. labor force. But unfortunately, their work often goes unnoticed. Many people are entirely unaware that this job is one of the most dangerous in the States. To combat this lack of knowledge and help oil field workers stay safe is the purpose of today's session. We'll go through strategies to build and bridge to connect compliance and manage knowledge effectively. Did you know the fatality rate in the oil and gas extraction industry remains an average of 7 times higher than the other industries? This fact is both alarming and scary. So how does a company create a safe workplace? Rochester Institute of Technology found that by implementing a safety management system, an operator can achieve that goal.
Let's look at some hard facts on this, Aman. Our industry still faces the injuries that occur on a regular basis. And you'll notice that well servicing on this slide, as the most current data, shows that it's the most frequently, has the most frequent incident rates. If we drill down to that further, into that data further, you'll find that production, drilling operations, and well servicing all have incidents of injuries, and that leads us to believe that this is a systemic problem still facing us in the industry. With it being systemic, that means that there's no one particular thing that they're doing. It's everything. And it's just a culture of not having a safe work environment. So those can be fixed, but we have to get to the point where we understand what the root cause of the problem is, because no one wants to get injured during a normal job operation. So there are some causes to why these injuries happen. It's a very technical field we live in, and we have to make sure that safety is a priority.
You're right. And you know, Chad, that's a really good question. And getting to that root cause, you know, the answer is ineffective compliance. So everybody dislikes it. No one wants to own it. You need all those three legs of the stool and the seat for it to work. If it's broken or when it breaks, it can be an awful experience. And above all, it can create an unsafe environment. And that's what we're talking about today. So people can be injured, they can be unfortunately killed, and brands and reputations can be damaged or lost forever. Leadership can be prosecuted and fined or jailed. Chad, if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance.
Right.
And, you know, this is the actual image that you see when you go on site at some of the companies that we go do consulting at. You know, they don't get it. So what are their current compliance strategies failing? Compliance programs are supposed to protect companies from the worst case scenario, to avoid accidents, legal issues, and maintain order in the company. So why do some of the strategies fail? There's a general lack of awareness. Not everyone involved understands why compliance is needed or is important. And once they even get through the awareness, there's still that lack of interest. Well, even if they get through that hurdle, you know, of lack of interest, then they have that number of compliances where these companies must adhere to. So it's tedious, it's confusing. And finally, when they get through that state of friction, they're ready to implement that. And many struggle with how to piece that equation together. And often they rely on that cookie cutter models, and 9 out of 10 times they fail, unfortunately. So what does that holistic image, you know, get you to? And you think that seed of knowledge is expensive, but the route of non-compliance is much more expensive. And you want that seed of knowledge. So before we get into that ideal state, I want to go ahead and walk you through what knowledge really is, and walk you through that today. So knowledge is awareness and understanding of set of information and the ways that information can be used or can be useful to support a specific task or reach a decision for a business. Knowledge within an organization can take many forms. It can be conceptual, or can drive process, learning, methodical, factual knowledge. It can be rooted within your data. Within your organization, you'll find experts or problem solvers, creative thinkers, and or technical minds, as well as diverse ways of understanding and communicating your company information. And then you dive into what is knowledge management? And that is knowledge that can take form into, say, documents or creative content, brand guidelines and procedures and processes that can greatly affect your bottom line if not understood correctly. So how do you ensure all programs or all forms of knowledge are accurate, relevant to the user, compliant, or easy to find? So knowledge management makes managing an organization's information effectively. It's as simple as that. And then once you get past knowledge management, well, where do you keep all of that, right? So you can keep all of that in the knowledge management system. And this image kind of paints some of those layers that you can house in a system. And a knowledge management system is a technology that can be used to automate or alleviate the process of knowledge management, which a system can intuitively use hard work. So it facilitates real-time information sharing and decision-making. And so in short, a knowledge management system, KMS, is an organized collection for people, process, technology, and it can be used to create, store, share, and use information throughout the organization. And it can also store experiences. For this, to work effectively, knowledge can fit together cohesively and make sense to each person within your company and each customer that encounters it, and however it might tie into the management or the organization that's utilizing it. And, to kind of paint you how this is actually overseen within the oil and gas industry, the leaders who've embraced knowledge management in the past, the oil and gas industry specifically has taken advantage of knowledge management developments for almost 2 decades now. And during this time, the industry has experienced rapid changes and multiple mergers that, we no longer see a single word company anymore, and that seems odd. And due to technical, logical advancements and numerous acquisitions and growing reliance on foreign oil sources and other focus on environmental issues, CAM initiatives have played a part in making operations more efficient and effective. So, this kind of highlights how knowledge management can be embraced. And, I would love to know a little bit more from you, Chad, on how a good CAM solution works and what it could offer.
That's a great point, Aman, and I appreciate that. One of the things I want to go over here is that in the knowledge management systems you're talking about, some of them can be very open-ended. And those are great systems. We know lots of systems out there in the world like that, like Wikipedia and lots of stuff on the internet does that. But one of the things we want to look at here when we talk about specifically the oil and gas industry and compliance and a knowledge management system that will help us be more compliant is a knowledge management system that has basically a built-in purpose, right? And so any good knowledge management system should have some workflows, some processes already built into it, so that once you put all the information in, it already has some ability to streamline the most tedious tasks that will get you from point A to point Z, which is the end result of a better compliance system. And it has to be the whole life cycle of the product, right? Like some people were saying in earlier presentations, cradle to grave. So the first thing that happens is, as the first 2 bullet points here, is when you acquire people or you acquire assets. That onboarding process for both people and assets needs to be very clearly laid out. And we'll go into detail on that in a second. But once you get the onboarding of the people and the assets properly done and documented, the next thing the system should do for you is automatically give you a gap analysis that tells you what you need to do for all the training on the people and all the inspections on the assets to bring them up to par with what your company standard is. And that should be a fairly automated process to get you to that point. And from that side of the table, you now have everybody in your organization and all of the assets in your organization up to snuff. The next part is that you put together projects. And once you put together a project where you bring people in and you bring assets in and you put together the specific job requirements of that project and that site, you now know whether the final ingredient, which is, are all of these things going to mix well together? The system should, again, be able to let you see that at a glance. The final two pieces are going to be the crowning jewels on what I think would make a system self-learning or correcting. When you have operational excellence assessments, what that is basically an easy way to do what we used to call audits, what we now call assessments. But you've got to do these processes on a regular basis. And we'll get into that in a second. But once you do these constant, continuous improvement type processes, the whole system starts working better because everybody takes ownership because they know it's consequential. The last part is, the last item is that in today's world, every system out there has to be, it has to be a reach out system. It has to be a push notification system so that all the employees and everybody has to deal with the system isn't logging into the system to check to see what's going on. Like your cell phone, it's going to push notifications to you when you need to take action. Those kinds of systems are what everybody's used to now, and so these systems need to be proactive in getting the users engaged. And so I think that the key performance indicators on any knowledge management system is not only is it as a repository, a smart repository for everything you've got going on with the individual detail items you're using for compliance, but it's also going to have a lot of those workflows built in. They drive you to staying in compliance. So, what are we looking at? We're looking at operational excellence, seamless integration. No system stands on its own nowadays. You have to have integration to several different systems, and people today expect systems to work together. And that's the way the world's going. So we can't have silos. Everybody's got to be working together. It's a continuous learning process. So you have to engage people to use the system in ways that they haven't wanted to use them in the past. Compliance engineering is a very nice term for basically getting your house in order, right? So, you need to make sure that every job and every asset, the inspection requirements are all laid out. So, we need to make sure that we understand how we're going to meet compliance. And most importantly, all of this drives us to where safety is for everyone. It works for everyone. Everyone is more safe in the environment that does this. So let's dive into, the critical components that you need to look at are going to be everything you deal with, right? So they're going to be employees, they're going to be assets, they're going to be projects. And then you need to take those and you need to track and manage each one. Employees get training, assets get work orders and inspections, projects get audited. So we take the basic core elements, and I don't want to dive too much into the technical details, but everybody needs to take the core elements of knowledge you put into the system and start building on how you process that knowledge. So let's go and look, this slide, I wanted to repeat this slide. I really like what you said here is that, we've been inundated with data for years now. And, data can turn into, where's that information? So we've processed that part, but getting to the point where that presents knowledge and also makes the company act in a wiser way, a more effective way. That's where you start getting into where knowledge management actually reaches its full potential. So those three legs have to work, and the seat has to be there for you to be able to use it. I like to think of the seat as a system that's easy to use, because if you can't take the seat, nothing works together, right? So ease of use is one of the most important things in today's environment. It doesn't matter how great the system is, if it's not easy to use, no one's going to use it. So let's dive into each one of these individually, and I'm just using some examples here but this can translate to any system that you have out there. One of the first things about people onboarding is that we have to lay out each job and the requirements for each job. So, when you get positions that you put people in, it can't be a vague thing like, this guy has everybody who's this position has these 7 things, except for that guy, he has 1 more. Oh, and this guy doesn't need that. That's been the way we've run our businesses for so long. And it's because of a very deep knowledge of existing employees who understand the certification. I mean, the regulations and the rules in such a way that they know that this guy's never going to go on that a job for a company that requires this document because he's always working on company A. And I don't want to use any company names, but that's his knowledge, and he knows that if he leaves or retires or wins the lottery, nobody knows why he doesn't have that certificate. So you've got to have a system that documents all of those exceptions and rules built into the knowledge, the entry system. Once you've got all that done, it should easily tell you. It's a fairly easy task to then say, what is it that I'm required now? If I've clearly defined every position, and I've clearly defined every employee is in a position with whatever requirements or whatever exceptions there are, the system should then easily tell you which documents are required, which documents are going to be coming due in 30, 60, 90, which documents are missing, which documents are already expired. I should be able to drill down into any one of these systems and go and find a particular document and say, this guy's document's expired. And at that moment, you should be able to easily say, hey, let's do something about that. Let's send that request to get him trained. Let's operate on that find that we've made in real time. Same thing is going to go for assets, right? Assets onboarding is a lot of times where we need to make sure it's up to our own mechanical integrity schedule, right? So mechanical integrity schedules give us the ability to say, I know exactly what we need to do to maintain this piece of equipment. The problem is that oftentimes companies and these systems don't have multiple mechanical integrity schedules. We have to have multiple. You have to be able to have one set of mechanical integrity, one MIS, a mechanical integrity schedule that applies to an asset when it's sitting in the yard. And you have to have a completely separate set of schedules for when it goes out on a job. If there is that job on land, or is it out in the saltwater environment? Is it out offshore? Each one of those is a separate mechanical integrity schedule for that particular asset type. And once you put an asset into a different mechanical integrity schedule, it has a whole new set of requirements, inspections. And so changing its mechanical integrity schedule that it lives by should be moving on to a whole new way of dealing with the asset inspections. But any system, once you define these schedules, should be able to maintain your assets in any way they want to go forward, no matter what you're doing with them. And the interfaces, one of the things I wanted to point out here is that the interface between each one of these different types of systems should present the data in somewhat of a similar manner to the user, so that you have someone who's looking at all of the different assets and people in an organization. They should be able to see that data coming to them fairly easily in a recognizable form. One of the things I was talking about earlier, or alluding to, was once you've gotten your people and your assets all up to snuff, you should be able to easily see where the gaps are. When you have gaps, you should be able to drive through a click down mechanism or some way to say, okay, well, these 5 people need that document. Let's send them to training. Hit a button, send an email, get it out. So that once you find a problem, you can easily remediate that problem on the spot. One of the problems that we're facing in 2020 with a lot of employee turnover and stuff is people are forgetting the procedures. Like, the systems will present information, but they won't know, well, okay, I know these 5 people need to get trained. Let me send that to my boss. It's quicker and more efficient if they can take the action right there that says, I'm going to send this request to the training provider and he's going to do it. I'm going to send this work order to the maintenance team. They're going to go ahead and get it done. So those kinds of immediate actions based on indicators is how you get the high bang for your buck when you're looking at getting it done quickly and easily. We're going to go on to projects here, which is what I was saying. Once you pull in everything into a project, we know that some sites and some projects, as I mentioned earlier, have special requirements. Those special requirements may be beyond what an asset or an employee is trained or an asset's inspected to do. So when we put these projects and these new requirements, we need to have a system that's able to understand that as it all comes together, there's a new set of requirements, and those requirements should be easily identified where, okay, based on these new requirements, I have new gaps. Let's go get those fixed. And if you have a gap with that, if you're trying to put that guy who doesn't have this certification because he can't work for this company, if you want to get him trained, you can then put him on the project. But now you know that, right? So it's all about how do you operate, how do you gain wisdom from just the knowledge that it's trying to present to you here. The last two steps is I think the most important and probably the most the newest part of the system that we've seen happen in the last 5 years. Safety used to be, and inspections used to be part of the individual departments. Operational excellence and audits are now being pulled out into their own departments so that they can be independent of the hierarchy of chain of command. And those systems now allow you to quickly and easily be able to go out and define all of the levels of compliance and regulatory needs you have to meet. And then you can simply quickly and easily say yes or no. Am I meeting these? Are there remediations that need to take place? How do we do that? We go ahead and take pictures. We drop stuff on the screen. In essence, capture the information about what needs to be done in real time, and then send that to the site supervisors in real time. And if you do it on a regular basis, they see it as a welcome. You're helping them stay in compliance as opposed to everybody dreading the audit process. So these systems aren't meant to make the auditor's job easier. It's to make the company deal with audits. That's why I think a lot of them are calling them assessments now. Make sure that everybody's dealing with assessments on a much more amicable basis, so that everybody doesn't dread the process. It's happening often, and it's a regular part of your daily life. Lastly, everything we're writing, everything we're seeing now is with you have to reach out to the user to give them notifications that you need something. So as opposed to having somebody log in, go through the menus, make sure that they understand how to log in to this system and how to work this system, as opposed to the other 20 systems they have to deal with today. What's happening here is everybody's saying, send me an email with that requirement on it. Give me a couple of options in the buttons, and then let me choose my action, and then have the workflows continue from that email or from that. Texting isn't that big a deal right now as far as communicating in two directions, but email is becoming a very big bi-directional communication platform because it's latency based, and so you can be coming into this and using it anytime you want, and the system starts reacting as people see the emails. So you don't even need to log in to be able to take action on what the system is telling you is going on. With those communications, I think that ultimately the big bonus of knowledge transfer means that the system becomes the conduit to transferring that knowledge between people. Because now all of this regulatory compliance, all of this stuff is now kept inside the system. So when people are transferring, and when a person's moving from one position to another, they don't have all of their focus on their old position. It's mostly on the new position. So that knowledge transfer of human to human is somewhat of a short and abbreviated process. With the system in place like this, the knowledge transfer is changing a few emails, making sure that the new person's the point of contact, and the system will take over identifying that this new person needs to make all these approvals. So that's where I think when you're coming down to how do you make the knowledge management simple, it's because knowledge management starts to work with you, not only for you, because it's always working for you, but it's also starting to work with you to make those things happen more easily. And finally, it's got to work on every device out there. I remember when we had devices that were, it had to be on a desktop. It only works on a desktop. But even down to the CBT training, the computer-based training, if somebody's going to do a confined space class, a computer-based class, they want to be able to take that on their cell phone. And so all the devices, all the platforms need to be able to, act on all this data, and you got to present the data so that it'll be represented properly on each of the platforms, because people are mobile and everybody's going to be doing everything from their cell phone, and it's not going to be just at a desk anymore. So those things all together, I think, is what points towards how we can make things more effective in any kind of knowledge management system for the oil and gas industry. So to summarize, I think that, critical thinking and, knowledge management is something that is going to be expected from systems that we're starting to use going forward. And I think that a lot of people who have kind of waited in the background for these things to happen because they have a lot of people to be able to take care of these issues. I think that 2020 is going to push people to start having to adopt these systems on a rapid level. And I think that they need to not be feared, because they can be made to work well with you. A lot of times the IT department in a lot of companies have dictated what technologies they use. And I think it's time for the people who are getting the job done to start dictating what they expect from IT and what they expect these systems to do for them to make their jobs easier. So those are the things that I think are important in the coming years.
You're right, Chad, and thank you for that. And bottom line is that compliance is extremely critical for safety, and knowledge management is critical for compliance. So when you bridge those together through knowledge management, it's a win-win. So with that, thank you so much, guys, for letting us present this to you all. And if you are ready to empower.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Chad.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I heard the question. The barriers to entry are not necessarily cost or time. The barriers to entry for any of these systems is really corporate resistance to change. So many times corporations have been using their current systems for years, and they just have a hard time leaving those systems behind or adapting them to anything new. So really what we find is it's really about corporate resistance. And if to get beyond corporate resistance, you have to have people who want to try and start using. You have to find some innovators in the system in that corporation. We're finding more and more of those in corporations, because you have younger people making their way up through the organizations, and they're always willing to adopt new technologies.
That brings up a good point, Chad. And one of the things that I was thinking about during the presentation was how can organizations almost gamify the notifications at the right time in the process? Because as you know, depending on where you are and what you're doing and what the task is that you're operating on, you have information that would be valuable to support the assessments and the knowledge transfer and the education process. And it'd be really helpful if the systems would be able to deliver that information on time. And I think that's what you were alluding to. So are you seeing that in a programming perspective, and more systems delivering knowledge on the fly when it's needed, like younger people are used to seeing when they open up a social media app of any kind?
Absolutely. In fact, a lot of the RFPs that are coming out, even from government and some of the medical research RFPs we've been seeing coming out, a lot of them are talking about, we want notification systems to be in real time. You want push notifications is what they're being called now. We find that a lot of these systems are where people, you're going to send people information. You can send it out any way you want. But the real benefit is when you can break down the kind of information you're trying to give to them, and you can say, okay, here's the response I need. So I need a simple yes or no here, right?
Yeah.
And if you can break down the questions to some very simple pieces, you can, number one, get a better response. If you're breaking it down to a yes, no answer, you can even get that response back in a text message. And I think you're going to start seeing with some of the new text messaging coming out with 5G, I think they're not the same technology, but they're rolling them out at the same time.
Yeah.
You're going to see text messages that you can respond to with buttons, like, yes or no, or little quick surveys. That's going to really unleash the ability for text messaging to be used as a quick response, question and response system. And I think that that's the way everything's going to go, because, the way it all was working is you come to Salesforce, right? You go to Salesforce, you go to Microsoft, you go to them and you log in and you process inside the system. These systems in the future, Facebook almost comes to you. They push those notifications to you, and then you quickly respond to them on your cell phone or wherever you want to go. And it doesn't matter, really, the system's ubiquitous. It's across all your devices. And I think that's where it's headed.
Well, and I think with the adoption of physical location, and where you have motion detection on your phones and your smart devices, if you're in a particular area, it'd be nice to get a notification. Are you doing a support ticket, or are you doing have your notification ask you, are you here for service, and then go through a couple of simple questions, and then be able to walk people through, so at that moment what process is being delivered in that particular area. And I think, there's a couple of contributing factors to that, because, whether it be a high safety area where, there has to be certain requirements for devices to be in that area, or
right.
Whether it be a closed loop system to where, security is a challenge or communications is a challenge. All of these factors are contributing in the knowledge and the accumulation of knowledge. And for Aman, I know when you're going into an organization and breaking all this knowledge and information down into areas of expertise, there's a lot of those pieces that are historically not connecting. And then you need to be able to bring those connections together, like Chad was alluding to, is
Right.
all of that information is kind of in buckets. And now we're working towards a goal of bringing it all together. So what are some of the big challenges you see in organizations in organizing that information?
Well, and this is something that's just a behavioral issue that is a hurdle that we try to get past, which organizations, you have departments, and they have the tendency to work in silos. And when they have that, over the years, they end up working in their own mindset, and they like to tend to keep their information within their subgroups, and they don't have that connection or shareability. That's where that disconnect forms. And over time, because they don't have that connectivity, that workflow, that process breaks, and you don't have current or valid knowledge that's captured. So that's one of the biggest hurdles that we see, and we try to bridge that. So, instead of being so cliche, problem solving, we're problem solvers, because we see that. We see that as soon as you get into an organization, you're able to map that out, because you see that silo behavior happening at a lot of organizations that we go to. And it's nothing bad. It's natural.
No, it is natural.
Yeah.
And like the old adage, goes, it's like the pickle can't read the outside of the jar, because, and sometimes it takes a new, fresh perspective like yourself coming into an organization, seeing around the corner, understanding what that information and that dialogue needs to be, so people can see what others in the organization are doing and how that needs to come together. And then with Chad and his expertise, can pull that in together into a system that allows people to take ownership, understand what the information needs to be to help others in the organization, and kind of open up that, remove the silos almost. And I think it's important for us to transfer that information to others as we go through this process. So.
Yeah, and you know, Russ, I don't want to be a futurist because I know we had two people on here who gave us great views of the future, but one of the things you just mentioned that made me think of something is, you know, I am starting to get some people asking me about, you know, can these mobile apps that you have on your phone already, can they be used for contact tracing? So on the back of contact tracing inside of a corporate organization, you can put a whole lot of other information you're trying to find out, like you were saying, because I know you're on a job with this guy because both phones are in this same geo area.
Mhm.
I know that you're both on the same job site, right? And you're both doing a job site analysis. So there's information that can be gleaned from contact tracing that can also be used for corporate, you know, data processing.
Yeah. Well, think of, I was on a project once where in a mining operation where they wanted to have devices notified when a device didn't leave the job site. So everybody was accounted for, and everybody was, you know, everybody, they had inventory of everybody that went in and then left. So there was an opportunity if someone didn't leave, they could find out and follow up and understand what happened and where that person is and why there was a failure to initiate that notification. So there are systems that are developing and coming about that I think are really important for organizations to see and think about as they process what they want to do in the future. We had another question from social media I want to get back to is, does everything need to be in one system, or can it use bits and pieces from multiple systems?
You know, it's a great segue for what you just said, Russ. I mean, you know, the problem I see coming is a lot of people are going to start bringing these, you know, single purpose apps to the table, right? And, you know, I need to be getting a little bit of information from the end user. So does this app, so does that app, so does every other app. So if you end up with 20 apps that need to get a little bit of access to the end user, you're going to inundate that person with all kinds of interfaces they have to deal with. That's why these apps need to be designed. And, you know, when you start picking an app for your company, you need to start picking an app that has open integration capabilities, right? They've got to work together. It doesn't matter which app is on the end user's client device, but that's the app that's got to share information with everybody else. Aman was just talking about all these silos of information. Application vendors are notorious for that. So you've got to have, I mean, I'm part of the problem, right? You know, we've been writing apps for so long, but now you've got to write apps that are sharing their data with everybody else out there. So yes, you can have a smart repository, SharePoint, OneDrive, whatever it is, the smart repository, and then, you know, the documents don't need to live inside the LMS or KMS. The documents can live inside the smart repository, and the workflow, the specific dedicated workflow processing can happen inside the KMS, but it doesn't need to harbor the source of the documents.
You know, that brings up a good point, and I think I want to touch base on this before we exit, because one of the things that I know is challenging, and Aman alluded to it in the presentation, is having this silo effect also restricts our ability to own the global information system, you know, something across multiple platforms, because it's like, this is my job, this is not my job. And I think there's a lot of times where systems can be designed, or we need to create a culture, or like, you know, Iman, you alluded to, problem solving is going to adopt a more open behavior where people want to share, they want to produce information that is helpful and useful to the rest of the organization. And they also want to be informed about what also comes back to them. So how do we create this knowledge transfer with ownership, and how does that process work, and how do you see it evolving in the future?
Well, you know, so the formula to that, right, is, and how do you make that win across the organization? So the way to make that work is through upper management at any organization, right? So if you have upper management take the initiative and implement it from top down, generally you'll have that work. And if it fails, it's because there is lack of initiative and participation. So it really depends on if the company is ready to take this on and they're ready to take this initiative for that knowledge transfer to occur. And if they're not, and they just want to do it for the sake of it, it's not going to occur. So that's what we're trying to align with when they're ready, and that project will be successful. Yeah.
Yeah. Chad, do you have any thoughts on an extension of adding color to that?
No, I think she hit it right. It's got to be from the management down. I think that I do believe that the younger generation is more open to that kind of thinking that you mentioned, Russ. I think that they love to be collaborative. I don't know if they have a thought without verifying it with 20 people on Snapchat, but the point is that, you know, that actually lends itself to a great collaborative work environment. They have no fear of collaborating, which is a wonderful thing. And so I'm hoping those two trends coincide to lead to the solution you're looking at.
Well, I think overall they'll graduate into a different future in an organization, because I think leadership and the company culture really has to go beyond what is required for compliance. And
Right.
It has to go on, you know, some of the statistics you had for the fatalities. I know that that's something that has an opportunity to improve, and it's going to take culture, leadership, and collaboration to make sure that that improves over time. So I have to believe that the work that you guys are doing, the information that you're collecting, and the knowledge transfer that you're developing for organizations is going to impact that in a healthy and productive future. So I really appreciate what you're doing. I want to ask the question, is there anything that organizations are failing to ask as they're developing knowledge transfer systems around knowledge transfer and management of information? Are there things that we should be putting out there and kind of promoting this idea that they can improve and not make it a painful transition, but make it a profitable transition? What are some things you'd want to share with that?
Well, let me see if I can make if I can connect it in a different way to your question, right? So you can see knowledge management in different ways, but we don't even realize it's happening. So I think it's more of awareness that this actually occurs. Companies where I don't want to keep using the word failing, but are not able to achieve this goal is where, knowledge retention is a big problem for them, where the aging workforce is leaving, they're retiring, and once they're out the door, unfortunately, they're losing that knowledge asset. All those years of experience and things that they know leave once they leave out the door. So there's no way of keeping that information, that knowledge within the company. They have advanced systems to make sure they have assets acquainted for, but the knowledge they don't. So that's something that would be nice to kind of get into. Analytics, you have data mining, trend statistics, that's being done. But again, there's no correlation between that and knowledge management. And then you have enterprise social networks. That's connecting people, giving them a voice, allowing them to express, kind of like what Chad was talking about earlier about the younger generation. But that's also collaboration, right? That's a lot of information, knowledge that's being expressed. And then you have aggregation, which is tagging, activity streaming, API, where you're integrating and calls to deliver relevant information feeds through multiple channels. And then you have customization, which includes individuals that react to certain information or flows and data. So there's so many different ways and walks of life that, that's all knowledge management. And yet, we're trying to get that word out and express that this is not just a niche. It's something that's very relevant. Everyone uses it, and it's out there. So, and someone touches it all the time.
Yeah, I would just add to that. There's I used to write aircraft software and I used to work with a lot of ex-military people. I've always been impressed how the military has handled knowledge transfer and people changing over, right? Because they've been running for hundreds of years and they do a fantastic job at it. And one of their key secrets is having a backup worker who actually takes your place for a week a month. You know, many of us have those backup plans in place, like who's your backup? But when's the last time you actually operated in that backup position for more than an afternoon, right? So those kinds of simple, we all have the processes in place. We have to execute those processes. And when you do that, you'll find out when knowledge moves with a person and doesn't stay with the process. And at that point, you've identified it, and now everything Aman says comes into play. You've got to be able to act on that, and you've got to be able to, know that it's identified and then remediate it. But it's one of the simple ways to find out where you have a person who's, we're allowing a substandard system to take, to run because there's a person supplementing that process. When that person moves, those processes fail. So, you got to identify those things. I think that's one of the things companies can do really easily to start identifying those areas.
That's a great point, Chad. And I think that adoption and like was stated before, culture and leadership and all of these things need to come together. What are some, one of the other social media questions came across, and is there a winning formula for knowledge management at an organization?
I think that's something that I kind of mentioned earlier was the formula is, based on management. And if they are ready to take that organization to the next level, they're able to, spearhead to that level. And that is a winning formula, and participation from throughout the organization to make sure that they're willing and able to do that. So that is a winning formula. It's simple as that.
And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that either.
Right. It is that simple.
And if it is, it's...
You're putting way too much thought into this.
Yeah, then you're doing something wrong. So.
Well, this has been, I have been in organizations and had to process a lot of information in the programming world. So it touches some of the things that I've had a lot more experience with than as it relates to other subjects that we've been talking about this week. So I get kind of passionate about process and systems and, understanding what it takes to put things together. And I know it's a constant challenge and it's iteration. It's one of these things that will never go away. New knowledge is coming in, new knowledge is being processed, old systems are being revised and updated. So it's a living, working document in an ecosystem that we have to live in. So I anticipate and I imagine that we'll be continuing this conversation going forward for Aman and Chad and SparkCon 2020 and all of the participants that are here today. So any last parting words that you want to share, Aman?
I'll just start by saying thank you so much for doing this. I'm sorry about a few technical issues I had this morning today, but I really do appreciate everything you guys have done, and I'm really enjoying the conference.
Well, thank you, Chad. I think this has just been an experience, and I'm just grateful that this has happened and this idea came to me and to the wonderful team that I get to lead every day. So just want to say thank you to my team for doing everything that they do. So and then also go out there and vote this year. That's it.
And so tomorrow we have a few more sessions. We're going to be talking about digital and with Jeffrey. Let me look that up. We got a couple of things going on here. I want to process that and make sure that you're aware of it. If my screen can come up here. So, and
more sessions.
We also have, and there are challenges, there are technical challenges that we'll have and things that'll take place always. And the beauty of it is we've continued to pursue delivering this information, continue to share it out, and we'll continue to share it out and make sure that we have an opportunity to actually provide some connection. So you can always reach the team at SparkCon 2020 at hi@sparkthought.com. And
That's
it's hi@sparkthought.com. Is that, I believe that's correct?
That is correct. Yes.
So just reach out, let them know that, let us know that you have questions or you have future questions. And then tomorrow at 11 Central Time, we have Change in Digital Adoption with Jeffrey Can. And then there's another session that we're going to have with, it's with Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Gailey, and he's going to be talking about some of the legal processes and contracts and some of the things that we're going to be talking about that. So don't miss out on those 2 sessions. And we look forward to having you join us tomorrow. Thank you so much. And from SparkCon 2020, you enjoy the day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
Bye.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Mon.